what my experience is. I started teaching in 1987, and I'm in the same school I started teaching in. Oh dear. Does anyone else want to? You're bored already. I teach in a boys' school in London, and when I first started teaching there in 1987, most of the boys in that school hadn't been through primary school in England. The majority of the school is 97% of the boys are of Bangladeshi origin, and most of them hadn't come through the primary system here. So it was a very, very challenging school in all kinds of ways, and I was completely at a lot. I've done a 1-year PGCE, and I was in there, but people helped me. People. We had a setup in the school where people were in my lessons all the time, and I was going in to other people's lessons, and people were in my lessons, in a way making judgments, telling me I was doing things wrong, telling me that they wouldn't have done this thing that way, or trying to point out where things had started to go wrong, and then showing me how to do it. It was a very supportive atmosphere. No one ever used a word like inadequate or satisfactory or failing. And the thing that you'll be interested in is we had a system of advisory teachers, and I had an advisory teacher called John Hardcastle who used to come in and see me teach and work with me. I had this year 2 class, which year 8 now. They were a really strange bunch of kids. They were so toxic in the first year that all 12 NQTs, we had 12 NQTs when I started at the school, we all got this class, just by sheer coincidence. Nobody else wanted, they all got the NQTs. And they were just such a really strange set of characters, the like of which I've never seen before. But this English advisor came in to see me teach them once, and he sat down at the end of the lesson and he said, "We've got a problem." And I remember him saying, "We've got a problem," and he went away and prepared some material, prepared some stuff for me to try and show me, lead me through what he was doing. So the point in telling that story is really to say that I think we've gone along with, for me, I think we've come a long way from a system where people were being supported, people were making judgment, but people being led through a process that you weren't expected to be the finished article, you weren't expected to know everything in your first year of teaching, and people helped and supported you along the way. And we've now reached a system, a situation I think where I think Kevin rightly described it, where we have high accountability, which is partly what we want to explore today, and low trust in teachers. That what I hear from teachers a lot is people saying, "I'm doing this." Primary teachers keep telling me when I go to do union meetings in schools, I'm spending my weekend planning, but what I'm thinking when I'm planning is, what is the head teacher going to think of the plan, not how is it going to... Now, I don't know if that is typical, partly what I want to hear from people today is what people are telling me. Is that reflective across the country? Is that what people feel about some of this system? We've reached a stage where people are afraid of Ofsted. People are afraid, I think, of people coming into lessons, and it doesn't seem to me that should be the case. We shouldn't. And again, if it's different in other parts of the country, we'd like to explore some of that. But people so afraid of Ofsted that they start to tell lies about it. I did a union meeting, a reps training meeting, where I said, put your hand up if you're in a school that has magically had some kids disappear when Ofsted come in, and almost everybody in the room did it. Or put your hand up if you're in a room where some teachers have magically been absent when Ofsted had come in and been replaced. And it's a common practice that people start to play, to play the game. We heard of a school in Liverpool where the caretaker was seen planting fully grown cabbages in the allotment because part of what they were inspected on was Healthy Schools Initiative. And we heard of a school last week where the head teacher called the staff in on a Tuesday and said, "We've just had the call, Ofsted are coming." Everybody goes into a panic, the 2-day Ofsted happens, and at the end of it, the head said, "That wasn't a real Ofsted, I just wanted to see whether it was," he'd called in local authority inspectors to behave like Ofsted, or can't have been their local authority because they would have known. And then he said it wasn't a real Ofsted, I just wanted to see how we'd get on. So this whole what I've described in the thing, this fear index, you know, are we constantly looking over our shoulders too much instead of looking forward at what the kids are doing? So that's what I want to explore, really, and, you know, give as much time to you to comment and talk. Tell us if, you know, what the unions are saying about it is wrong, you know, or, you know, if what we're saying about it is right. What are the problems, and then are there ways in which we can to solve it? Because the government are telling us they want to understand it. Michael Gove says he doesn't understand what we're saying or what the problems might be, so, and so wants to start to look at solutions. So I thought what we could do, and I mean, we can just have it as a whole class plenary if you want. We've got limited time now because that overran, so I think we've got about 20-25 minutes. Is that right? What I had intended to do was ask you in groups, you know, twos or threes, to think about some questions and then come back, or we could just start to do it in as whole class. But the questions I thought we'd start off with was to try and think back over the last year, to try and list the ways in which you have been judged by someone, either in your school or someone outside the school, the ways in which someone has made judgments about your work, whether that's through observations or other mechanisms. To talk about how many and which of those ways in which it happened involved a dialogue with you, involved you in a dialogue with someone else about what you were trying to do and what the context of any judgment was. To talk about which parts of those areas in which your work has been judged was useful to you, which parts of it enabled you to reflect on your practice and change your practice in a way that you think has helped the children, and then sort of within that to focus on, you know, which parts are helping us do the job we're doing and which parts really are about proving that proving to someone else that we're doing the job rather than focusing on it. Does that make sense to have some discussion? And then, you know, if we can, what we want to do is, and this is something that the NUT certainly will be trying to roll out around the country and get school groups and NUT people, you know, teachers to talk about, is to help us find some solutions to it. You know, abolishing Ofsted may be one thing, but you know, help us find some solutions that would really help people deal with this accountability agenda and this, you know, closing the gap between the high accountability and low trust. If some of what I've said you disagree with, I want to, you know, please feel free. You know, we want to have an open discussion about it. So I don't know whether you want to just spend a few minutes in threes around you to think about some of those questions and then come back, or do you just want us all stay together and someone be brave enough to kick off? You stay together? Yeah. Oh, yeah? So, okay, so the first question was ways in which people have been judging your work, because I think sometimes we may not always realise, you know, where so that may be something to...
Just one space to wait.
Yeah, well, you know, just...
Do you want someone to start?
Yeah.
Is anybody SMT here? Me. And you also teach anyone secondary school as well? Yeah. Right, and I'm secondary school, SMT, Liverpool. And one of the things that I'm finding, I still teach, I'm still in the classroom, I'm still expected to do the things that all the members of staff are doing, but one of the things I find really, really difficult at the moment is the lesson observations, because basically I, as a teacher, as a language teacher of, well, nearly 20 years, I don't actually know what I'm meant to be doing anymore. Because although the framework now is saying we can do whatever we want, and that progress is, you know, at the heart of everything. I mean, for us, it's always been at the heart of everything, but now we can basically teach a lesson in whatever way we want. I'm finding it very difficult going into other people's lessons, you know, to observe them. And it's not just the lesson observation that we now are looking at, we're also looking at data, so we're looking at class profiles, we're looking at exercise books. Marking is the big thing, and marking is the big thing in secondary schools, I would imagine, as much as in primary schools. That's adding hours and hours and hours to people's weekly weekly load.
Can I come in there?
Yeah,
To
sure.
say, like, as a school, we made a decision this year to stand back from it all, and, you know, as an SLT, we haven't done any formal graded lesson observations, we haven't done any formal scrutinies of work. In a way, you would say, actually, we haven't judged anybody. The only people we've observed at all are new people to the school, very
Yeah.
informally, to make sure, you know, that they are actually managing in the classroom and is there any help they need. And we've made a deliberate decision to stand back from all of that, put a big focus on teaching and learning, and like there's about 40 teachers in the school, 16 of us are here today, you know, which shows like the sort of how enthusiasm that you can kindle if you do that, and to work together on what we think we should be looking at for classrooms.
Where's that school?
It's in the northeast Belmont, near Durham, and you know, I think actually just standing back from it all and thinking, Ofsted never said we had to do all of that. It was like leadership teams misinterpreting it. We've actually got a lot of weight now with the clarifications that have come out even this week, that they're not going to grade individual lessons. They're formally doing a pilot, but they never should have done it the way they did it anyway. So I think it's just actually standing back and thinking, what do you as a school think constitutes excellent teaching? What do you collectively as a staff want to see in lessons and working through together? And it's a long, slow process, you know, like we're taking a whole year over it, but just actually having the confidence to say, we'll just actually take time and do it properly, and we'll not tick boxes for anybody anymore.
So your school's had the confidence to
It's
do that?
We've put a lot of research into it.
Yeah.
You know, we've read massively, we've attended things like the N10 conferences and so on.
Yeah.
We just said we're not doing it like that. We're having a debate that's going to develop into what we will look at. But we just haven't done the graded lesson observations. We haven't done anything for performance management like that. We're looking at completely different ways of helping people, using performance management to help people improve. So I think there's a huge amount where it's horror stories that are perpetuating a culture of fear, and if we just all step back from them, we could...
That'd be really